Gun Shalom Akim. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of great Millstone who teach and rule well, and Shalom to the sincere Akim, furnish truth and sincerity. Shalom. In this lesson, I want to talk about the anointed cherub that Covereth, and I want to show you with the scriptures, who that is talking about. But before we're going to discover who that actually was talking about, we first need to establish, something that the Bible talks about, which is reincarnation. Without this principle of reincarnation, you will not be able to understand what I'm going into with the up and coming scriptures, because that's fundamental to understand that certain spirits come back uh, through the reincarnation. So this is the book of Second Esdras, chapter 14, in verse 35, and it says, "For after death shall the judgment come, when we shall live again, and then shall the names of the righteous be manifest, and the works of the ungodly shall be declared." So once a person dies, after 3 or 4 generations, this person comes back. But the way that this person comes back in his next life is the judgment for his previous life or lives. You see, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 16. Salakia. "And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there." So this is a scripture that backs up Second Esdras chapter 14 verse 35, because this scripture shows you that the place of judgment is under the sun. After that, we died and come back, which the place of judgment that is under the sun is speaking about the earth. You see, so every time that we die, after a couple of generations, we come back to live out our next lives upon this earth, which is the judgment that we're being served and being given by the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. You see, so with this being established, that the scriptures indeed talk about reincarnation, which that is a whole lesson within itself. But what I did is I grabbed the two scriptures that um, show this most clear um, concerning this, to bring that out, to establish um, that basic foundation of understanding that yay, a person can come back multiple lifetimes, carrying that same spirit with him, but every time being reincarnated in a different body. You see. So now I want to go to book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, and starting at verse 13. It says, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of thy tabrets and of thy pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou wast created." And according to the scriptures, we understand that a couple of people were there in the Garden of Eden that we can read about, you see. And to basically give a shadow of things to come, this lesson is going to talk about the serpent that was in the garden, Cain, and Esau eating the so-called white man upon the earth. They all carry the same spirit that goes back to the serpent of the garden, you see. So with that being brought out, I'm going to show you with the scriptures that that's actually what is referring to with Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13, verse 14, and verse 15. But only for those with eyes to see and ears to hear, you see. So, um, so it says, Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13, "Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High." We understand that Esau, Edom, the so-called white man upon this earth, has not been in the Garden of Eden, in the flesh. We also understand that Cain has not been in the Garden of Eden in the flesh, because after Adam and Eve transgressed, they were kicked out of the garden, and after that were Cain, Abel, and eventually Seth, being conceived. You see, so in order to understand what that this is that this is talking about the serpent, we need to go over a couple of scriptures to break this down. You see, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to go into the serpent itself. Let me see. This is Genesis chapter 3 and verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which the Lord Yahawah had made. And he said unto the woman, Yea, that the Most High said, Ye should not eat of the tree of the garden. And the serpent was not talking about an actual serpent. This is actually talking about an actual man. And the word subtle means skillful to deceive. It says subtle, shrewd, crafty, sly, sensible, crafty, shrewd, sensible, prudent. So that serpent, he was very skillful to deceive, which that's what he used to, I say it, to deceive Eve. Verse 2, And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High had said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. So here, the serpent, which was an actual man, and Eve had a conversation, and the Most High, told Adam and Eve not to eat of the tree that's in the midst of the garden, which is that tree of the knowledge of good and evil. You see, which that tree was actually talking about a man, because if we go to Mark chapter 8, verse 24, we understand that this blind man, after he was healed, he compared the people, to trees. This is Mark chapter 8, verse 24. And he looked up and said, I see men as trees walking. So when we go to the book of Genesis, when it talks about trees, and them hiding behind trees, it means that they were hiding themselves among the people that were there as well. You see, but the tree that had that fruit concerning the knowledge of good and evil, was talking about a certain man that had different doctrine, different philosophies. See, so eventually Adam and Eve, they consumed of that tree because they were ignorant. They only knew good. But once they ate of that knowledge, once they received that knowledge, then they also knew the bad. You see, Genesis 3 verse 3. But of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, the Most High had said, Ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. So the Most High said, once you start to eat of that fruit, of that knowledge, if you consume that knowledge, if you digest it and you have it in your mind, then you're gonna die. But the serpent said unto Eve, unto the woman, that's not gonna happen, which was the lie. Verse 5, For the Most High doth know that in the day that ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. Because Adam and Eve only knew the good, which goes back to, them receiving the law, statute, commandments of Yahawashi and Yahawashi in oral fashion. You see? Verse 6, And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that was pleasant on the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise, she took of the fruit thereof and did eat, and gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. So that same fruit, you see, it was pleasant to the eyes, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. There's no fruit upon this earth that makes a person wise. Wisdom Knowledge and understanding is what makes a person more wise. So what is that made them to know both good and evil? You know, left hand understanding. See, which that is what they consumed. You know, what they had taken from that serpent, which was the actual man. You see. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to talk about who that serpent actually was. Through the reincarnation. This is Revelation chapter 20 and verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And this angel is referring to Septimius Severus, which means the cutter of seven. You see, and this is going into a little bit of history, but at the end of the Roman Empire being ruled by the so-called white men, you know, Jake, Israelites came into rulership, and he was the one that basically set a seal upon them, for 1,000 years. You see, he was the one that it started with. You know, he was the first one, or basically one of the first ones to uh, to make sure that Jake um would be let me say different. During that time that Septimius Severus ruled, that was the beginning of the 1,000 years rule of the of what was left of the Roman Empire um, during the time of the Dark Ages or the Byzantine Empire. You see, so this is Revelation chapter 20 verse 1. And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And the great chain was to bound up certain people. The bottomless pit is referring to Europe. Why is it a bottomless pit? And why is it also referring to a piece of land? Well, I'm gonna grab scripture for that as well. But it's referring to Europe because Europe, Europe lacks mineral resources. You're not really able to acquire, you know, a lot of wealth if you dig in the earth, and also you're not able to grow certain exotic fruits over here in Europe. So it's a bottomless pit, man. It's really not much. This is this is Second Esdras chapter 5 and verse 24. And of all the lands of the whole world, thou hast chosen thee one pit, and of all the flowers thereof one lily. So this is talking about those things that the Most High has chosen that He likes. So the Most High has chosen one pit, which that pit is referring to the land of Israel. So the bottomless pit is referring to land as well, but it's not, really availing much. You see, it's worthless. And of all the flowers thereof one lily. So the Most High likes the lily from all the flowers upon His earth. Revelation chapter 20 verse 2. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. And the dragon is referring to the Roman Empire, you know, which that Roman Empire was being ruled by the Edomites, so-called white men. That old serpent, which old serpent? The old serpent that goes back to the Garden of Eden, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. You see, so that uh, Roman Empire under the rulership of the Edomites was being put in subjection, and they were being cast into Europe for 1,000 years. Verse 3. And cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that, he must be loosed a little season. So, a couple of things we understand from these scriptures is that, the Sukwaman upon the earth is also be referred to as the devil and Satan. The devil and Satan in the flesh. See, you also have the spiritual demon Satan. They were cast out of, or cast into Europe, the mountains, for 1,000 years during the Byzantine Empire, the Dark Ages. And they're also the ones that are very deceiving. cunning to deceive, skillful to deceive. You see, because that's what they did. Liars. And after that, he must be loosed out of the season, because once those 1,000 years were finished, they came back into power again during the Renaissance, which means the rebirth. The rebirth of what? The rebirth of their kingdom, of their empire, which that's referring to the revived Roman Empire. And also during the time that they got into power again, they committed iconoclasm, which means they destroyed all the art pieces that showed you that the Israelites, the dark-skinned um, people, Israelites, so-called Negroes, were in rulership during that time. You know, so the next verse is 2 Thessalonians chapter 2, and yeah, let me start at verse 3. This is to back up the point in Revelation um, that we're going to find out who that old serpent goes back to, and who also is the devil and Satan incarnate in the flesh, which that's basically saying the same thing twice. But so it says, 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 and verse 3, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day should not come except the coming of falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition. So we shouldn't be deceived by anything. You see, if we read up a little bit, it's concerning the second coming of Yahawashi. That in between those periods, we might be hearing things, we might be reading things that's gonna, shake us up in the mind. But whatever happens, we shouldn't be deceived by no people, no demons in the mind. We should be firm in this truth. You see, it says, "For that day shall not come, except the coming of falling away first." So before the second coming of Yahawashi, our nation would fall as a whole. That happened in around 70 AD, as our people had to flee from the Roman persecution that took place when they surrounded Jerusalem and laid siege upon Jerusalem. Then our people had to flee into the mountains or in Africa, and that's where we start to lose more and more of our heritage. You see, it says, "And that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition." So prior to the second coming of Yahawashi, both we would lose our heritage, we would lose the fact, we would lose the knowledge of who we were, the Israelites, the so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, but also those that were scattered among the heathen nations that might look like the heathen nations, but whose lineage does go back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, according to their father's seed line. But what would happen as well is that man of sin and the son of perdition will be revealed. We're just going into Esau, Edom, so-called white men upon the earth, as I'm going to show you as well with the scriptures. So it says, 2 Thessalonians 2 and 4, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called the Most High, or that is worshipped, so that he, as the Most High, sit in the temple of the Most High, showing himself that he is the Most High. And we understand that the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. They have the power to set themselves up in a certain fashion. They are the ones that are creating new type of, I say that, type of fruits, by engineering. They are creating pig hearts for people to be transplanted. They are trying to create animals that glow in the dark. So what is it that they're really doing? They're trying to play the Most High upon this earth. So they set themselves up as being the Most High, as so-called gods upon this earth. Verse 5, remember ye not that when I was yet with you, I taught you these things. And ye know what withholdeth that he might be revealed in his time. And it's the Most High that was withholding that until the set time was there for them to be revealed. Verse 7, for the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Because during the Roman Empire, these people were in rulership. That goes all the way back to the Greek Empire. Because once the the Greek Empire was established under the rule of the Edomites, you know, that's when wickedness, increased upon this earth. You see, so that mystery of iniquity, that mystery concerning all the wickedness, was already busy, during the Greeks and during the Romans. You see, verse 8, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So these Edomites will be revealed in due time, which that is happening right now. The wicked upon his earth is being exposed for who he is, and what he's doing upon his earth. As the title of this video is going to be the anointed cherub that covereth, it's going into to cover up something, to give an example. If you Let me grab the most simple example that I can give concerning what I already brought out in this lesson is iconoclasm. During the 1,000-year period that we was in rulership, when the dark-skinned Jake's Israelites, so-called Negroes, were in rulership, we had artwork. What did they do? They destroyed those art pieces and they covered themselves to be those people. You see. So it says, and then shall the wicked be revealed, whom the Lord Yahawah shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. So how is it being revealed? Through the service of the prophets. The Most High is consuming them with the spirit of his mouth. That's referring to the servants of prophets of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. They shall destroy with the brightness of his coming, and that's going to happen when Yahawashi comes back. Verse 9, this is the point why I brought these scriptures out. Even him, whose coming is after the working of Satan, with all power and signs and lying wonders. So now we see that there is a correlation between the wicked and Satan. Why? Because the wicked that's bearing rule upon his earth is Satan incarnate, Satan in the flesh, the physical representation of the devil and Satan upon his earth. You see, and to make this video more clear who that is, I want to break that down as well. So this is Malachi 1 and 4. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, being brought down, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus said the Lord Yahawah of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord Yahawah hath indignation forever. So whereas Edom says, we impoverished, being brought down, destroyed, but we will return and build the desolate places. So they were taken out of rulership, during the time of Septimius Severus, which was roughly about 170, 180 AD. Um, so that's when they were being pushed into the mountains. But they say, but we will return and build the desolate places, so they want to come back, in rulership. This is what the Most High said. Thus said the Lord Yahawah of hosts, they shall build. This is going to happen. They're going to come back. They're going to build, build back their empire. But it also says, but I will throw down. They should call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord Yahawah hath indignation forever. So yeah, they're gonna come back after they were taken down, but the Most is gonna take them down as well again. But these people are being referred to as the border of wickedness, meaning that they're the wicked upon this earth, and the Most High has righteous anger towards those people. This is Genesis chapter 36 and verse 1. Now, these are the generations of Esau, who is Edom. So now understand that Satan is in correlation with the serpent. we understand that Satan, you know, has a physical counterpart upon this earth, which is the wicked, which the wicked is Esau, which is Edom. So then you start to understand, like, hey, that serpent that goes back to the Garden of Eden, he carries that same spirit as these Edomites have upon this earth in this day and age. You see? And I want to go into that as well to show you that with the scriptures. Um, so yeah, back in Revelation 20 and 2, and he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years. So now we understand that in the Garden of Eden, that same spirit was back in Esau. But Esau, through the spirit, we understand the same spirit was also in Cain. So this is Genesis chapter 4 and verse 1. And Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived, and bare Cain, and said, I have gotten a man from the Lord Yahawah. In order to break down and get the understanding that Cain and Esau, you know, are the same people coming back in the spirit, so when Esau was born, you know, he bore the same spirit as Cain. But in order to understand that, we need to go into a couple of words. So this is the word Quayon, which is the name of Cain. Um, in order to, because what I did is, it says this, like, other than biblical usage, Cain is a possession, Canite is Smith. So it goes into a couple of things, but by going into this interlinear lexicon, we don't get the understanding that we need to break down that it's talking about Esau. So we need to go to the root word, which is still the word quayon, but here we understand that the outline biblical usage is a spear, which a spear is a murder weapon. With this, you're able to kill someone. So it says, a spear, Cain, the fratricide son of Adam. So it's still going back to that Cain, the garden. So we understood that his name goes back to being a weapon. So if we go to Genesis 4 and 8, this is the moment that Cain slew Abel, his brother. Because eventually Cain, he was jealous of his brother Abel, because Abel, he presented a righteous sacrifice unto the Heavenly Father. But Cain, he presented, something that the Most High didn't accept, which was, the fruit of the field. This is Genesis 4 and 8. And Cain talked with Abel, his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up against Abel, his brother, and slew him. So in order to have slain Abel, he needed to, let me rephrase it. Cain slew Abel, but Cain, his name goes back to being a murder weapon, an instrument of war. We also understand that Esau has been given a certain blessing upon his earth, because there's nothing new upon his earth, nothing new under the sun. History repeats itself. This is Genesis chapter 27, verse 38, and this is going into how Esau and Jacob were blessed of their father Isaac, but Esau was supplanted out of his blessing, which eventually was his own mistake, but this all happened through the Spirit. This is how the Most High wanted these things to be. So it says, Genesis chapter 27, verse 38, and Esau said unto his father, Hast thou but one blessing, my father? Bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling should be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above. So Esau still wanted to be wanted to receive a blessing, even though Jacob received that first blessing, the bigger one. So Isaac tells him, like, you're gonna receive a blessing, but your blessing is gonna be, you're gonna have the fattens of the earth, you do heaven from above, which means you're gonna live in luxury and lavish, which that's what they have right now. If you look upon this earth, they drive the newest cars. They're very rich. They also can go on holidays multiple times a year, visit the most beautiful places upon this earth. That's been given unto them. Right now, they're living in their heaven, and we're living in our hell. But things are going to be turned upside down when Yahawashi comes back. And they're going to be living in the worst hell. We're going to be living in the best heaven, man, which is the kingdom of Yasha Allah. Um, Verse 40, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and shalt serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. So through these scriptures, we understand that Esau has been blessed with the sword. Cain, his name was being referred to as a weapon, a spear, which is a murder instrument. And the blessing is what Esau has. You see, but only for people with eyes to see and ears to hear, they're able to understand this. That the serpent in the garden carries that same spirit as Esau, Edom, the so-called weapon upon the earth. You see, and that Cain carried that same spirit as the serpent and Esau. You see, before I want to go on, I still want to show this picture because I brought this picture out for a reason. Prior, I set up this picture for a reason because I want to show you that Esau is indeed the so-called white man upon the earth. We got all about it, but Ertazat still comes in good use. So we understood that Esau is Edom. Edom is the border of wickedness. The wickedest devil upon this earth. Um, so this is Genesis chapter 25, verse 25. And it says, and the first came out red all over like an hairy garment, and he called his name Esau, which Esau in the Hebrew is Ashashwa, which means wasted away as he is. That's referring to his skin pigmentation, because he has none. You can see the blood through his skin. So when Esau came out of his mother's womb, when he came out of Rebecca, her womb, they looked upon him and was like, he looks red. He's red all over. He looks the same as those garments, as the pieces of skin that they used to have back in those days. You see, and not only that, but once these people perform exercise, or they're in the sun for too long, or they're hot, that's when their redness really shows. You can see it in these pictures as well. You see, so you're to say, this was still useful. Um, so now that we established those things, the serpent, Esau, and Cain bearing those same spirits, I want to go back to Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13. It says, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was thy covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and the gold, the workmanship of the tabrets and of the pipes, was prepared in thee in the day that thou was created. This is referring to, I say that, to to the serpent, which the serpent was also Cain and Esau. And if we go to that word covering, um, it says ma, masaka. It says a covering, for example, a garniture, which a garniture is something to make something more beautiful. Like I have those West African type of garments with the garniture upon them just to make them a little bit more beautiful. So we go to Thesaurus Plus. It says a garniture, something that decorates or beautifies, which the synonym for garniture is an ornament. So it says ornament, something that decorates or beautifies. I'm gonna also bring it out to show it. So you have these basic vases, they're just white. But the garniture is referring to those beautiful things that are decorated upon them to make them more beautiful. See, to beautify them or to decorate them. See, and in a spiritual sense, it's referring to the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of Yahawashi, because that's what's gonna make you more beautiful. That's what you can put on, and then you're gonna be covered with that. So this is Ecclesiastes chapter 6 verse 22. For wisdom is according to her name, and she is not manifest unto many. Give ear, my son, and receive my advice, and refuse not my counsel. Put her, and put thy feet into her fetters, and the neck into her chain. Bow down thy shoulder and bear her, and be not grieved with her bonds. Because once you come into the truth, when you put on the knowledge and understanding of Yahawashi, it can be you're gonna have a harder time because you're not able to do all these things that you did prior. You cannot walk in the lusts of the flesh, you know, performing wickedness. No, man, you got to be always trying to walk in the spirit. But doing that, it's gonna come with trials, tribulations, temptations. It's gonna be something hard to not like to bear. But um, yeah, let's leave it at that. Verse 26, come unto her with the whole heart and keep her ways with all thy power. So whatever you do, try to stick on and remain with that wisdom. Search and seek, and she shall be made known unto thee. And when thou hast got hold of her, let her not go. For at the last thou shalt find her rest, and that shall be turned into that joy. Because eventually the wisdom is gonna bring you comfort as well. At first it's gonna be, a little bit more hard, more difficult, but eventually it is gonna give you rest. Then shall her fetters be a strong defense for thee, and her chains is a robe of glory. It's gonna beautify you, man. For there's a golden ornament upon her, and her bands are purple. You see, so there's a golden ornament upon wisdom, and her bands are purple lace. Thou shalt put her on as a robe of honor, and shalt put her about thee as a crown of joy. So wisdom is able to cover you. By putting on the whole armor of Yahweh Bashem Yahushua, you're applying knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, which that is not always easy at times, but it is. I say that it is the best thing to do. You see, it's gonna keep you calm. It's going to keep you safe. You're gonna be protected, taken care of. You know. So putting that on is gonna make you more beautiful, man. It's gonna clothe you, man. So when it talks about um, um, Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13, thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was that covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. This is referring to how wisdom, was covering, you know, uh, how the wisdom of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, was there with basically the serpent as well, and with Cain also, and Esau knows the truth as well. It says the workmanship of the tabrets and of the pipes was prepared in thee in the day that thou was created. And we understand that according to Revelation chapter 14, this gospel that we're singing is likened unto a song, which that is music. So it says, Revelation chapter 14, verse 3, and they sung as it were a new song before the throne and before the four beasts and the elders, and no man could learn that song but the 144,000 which were redeemed from the earth. So it is not talking about a new song, but it's talking about a refreshed song. And the 144,000, chosen men of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, serve as the prophets, they're able to learn this song, they're able to know this truth, and they're able to bring it out as well. So this song, which is the gospel, is likened unto music. Meanwhile, what we're teaching is is the truth, but it can be likened to a doctrine or a philosophy. See, there's one more precept that I want to liken this generation. Let me see which one I like more. Yeah. This is Luke chapter 7, verse 31. And the Lord said, whereunto then shall I liken the men of this generation, and to what are they like? They are like unto children sitting in the marketplace, and calling one to another, and saying, we have piped unto you, and ye have not danced, we have mourned to you, and ye have not wept. See, because what we're basically doing is making music, you see. And the people are not really dancing to it, they're not really according to it, according to the truth that we're preaching upon this earth, you see. So going back to Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 13, you know, that serpent, Cain, Esau, they knew about the truth. You know? They also have the truth. But in order to tell a lie, because that's what we're going into with that anointed Cherub covered, in order to know um, in order to tell a lie, you need to know the truth, you see. And in Genesis, the third chapter, it says, mm, so it says, Genesis 2 and 9, and out of the ground made the Lord Yahawah, uh, made the Lord God to grow every tree that is pleasant in the sight and good for food, the tree of life also in the midst of the garden, and the tree of knowledge and good and evil. So that tree of knowledge and good and evil was referring to that serpent, that was not supposed to be eaten from, you see. And it knew both good and evil. So it knew what was righteous, what was good, the truth, but also knew the wicked things, you see. Um, so going to Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 14, it says, thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I've set thee so. Thou wast upon the holy mountain of the Most High, thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. So, first point that I want to make concerning this um, verse is going into the word Covereth. Let me see here. Sakak. It says, out in the biblical usage, to hatch, fence about, shut in, to block, overshadow, screen, stop the approach, shut off, cover, to screen, cover, to screen, cover, to cover, lay over, to weave together, to weave. So the anointed cherub was set up to basically cover something. And it says the cover in the online etymology dictionary, it says sense of to hide or screen, to put something over something else. So what I want to be going into next is how Esau Edom, was set up, by the Most High to cover um, to put himself out there as being certain people that he's actually not. And what I want to go into is how they claim, to be the Egyptians. Meanwhile, the original Egyptians were not so-called white people. So what did they do? They covered the faces not only of the judges, which we're going to next, but also over certain other nations upon this earth. And in particular, I want to talk about the Egyptians, Mitzrayim. I want to talk about them because I have an article um, that goes into how um, a facial reconstruction was being made of Ramses II, who lived about 13 to 1200 BC. But they proclaim that that's talking about talking about so-called white people, which is not the case. So they put something over something else. They put themselves, over the actual Egyptians. And if we grab Revelation um, chapter 20, and I'm going to go straight to the point, verse 3. Um, it says, and cast him into the bottomless pit. So these Edomites were pushed into Europe, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more, so the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. So prior to that, his deception was also proclaiming to be, the well, let me rephrase it. In this day and age, they proclaim themselves to also be the Egyptians. You see that in movies, series, they show you that with this facial reconstruction as well. So back then they already covered certain parts of that already, you know. So they already back then they were being deceptive. They were deceiving. You see, this not only happened with the with the Egyptians, but they also did the same thing with the actual Grecians, which were actually Japhetic people, the people that we know in this day and age as the Indonesians or Vietnamese people. You see. But I want to focus on these Egyptians for the most part in this lesson. So, during that time that they were in rulership, the Greeks and the Romans, they were already being very deceiving upon this earth. Um, so in this day and age, we read about those things in their books, science that they, so-called science that they bring out. Um, so this is Job chapter 9, verse 24. It says, the earth is given into the hand of the wicked. He covered the faces of the judges thereof, if not wherein who is he. So the Most High has given the earth into the hand of the wicked, which is Esau, Edom. He allows them to cover the face of the judges, which starts off with Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi. They portray the Most High to be a so-called white man. They portray the Messiah to be a so-called white man. They portray the angels to be so-called white babies. They portray so-called white people also to be the people of the Bible, being referred to as Israelites, which that is not the case because those people are in fact dark-skinned people. This day and age, we do look like so-called Negroes, Latinos, Native Americans, and also like the other nations, you see. But way back, we were all dark-skinned people. But they bring out certain information with their philosophies and doctrine. It says a philosophy. See, beautiful one that went to do with doctrine. Here, here. Couple with doctrines. So it says philosophy says the particular doctrines relating to these issues of some specific individual or school. So here it gives you example the philosophy of Descartes, which was an actual man. He held a certain doctrine. French mathematician, philosopher, and scientist. So there's a certain doctrine that he has, but the so-called white people they put forth a certain doctrine or philosophy, there that they're the Egyptians. That's what they show you with the lies, with the television, with the history books. That's what they do, and the Most has set them up to be so. We can read in Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 14, "Thou art the anointed cherub that covereth, and I have set thee so that wast upon the holy mountain of the Most High, thou hast walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire." So Esau was already, the spirit of Esau was already walking there, in the midst of the garden among these other people. See, the word doctrine. It says a principle or body of principles presented for acceptance or belief is by religious, political, scientific, or philosophical group dogma. You see, so they present a certain principle upon this earth that the people believe, but it's not the case, you know, because the real Egyptians were dark-skinned people as well, and we know them in this day and age as Sudanese people. And I'm going to bring that out as well, that there is no fact that there's no way that they can be the original Egyptians. There's no way. That's a fact. So this is the article that I want to go into. It says face reconstruction of Ramses II based on the pharaoh's mummy. So they took the mummy, they scanned his face, and then with the PC they added certain things to it to reconstruct his face of what he looked like, in those times. So it says artificial intelligence reconstruction of a pharaoh Ramses II may have looked like 1300 to around 1200 BC. What do we see? We see a so-called white man. Ramses II, also known as Ramses the Great, was the third pharaoh of the 19th dynasty of Egypt. He is often regarded as the greatest, most celebrated, and most powerful pharaoh in the New Kingdom itself, the most powerful period of ancient Egypt. His successors and later Egyptians called him the Great Ancestor. So they put all these titles there as well. Oh, he's so great. But the point is, they're lying. What they're doing is they're covering. They're, as it says, they're putting something over something else because they are not the actual Egyptians. Yeah, history does show you that so-called white people took over Egypt when the Greek Empire ruled and then the Roman Empire. You know, we know that these things happened, but they're not the actual Egyptians. They're not the actual people being referred to as Mitzrayim in the scriptures or Matazariam. You know, Matazariam. Because if we go to the Greek rule over Egypt, it says the late period of ancient Egyptian history came to an end in 332 BC when Egypt was conquered by the Greeks. Okay, so let me go to the book of Maccabees. And I didn't plan to go into the Maccabees, but it's still being brought out. It says, First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 1, and it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip, the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chittim, had smitten Darius the king of the Persian and Medes, that he reigned in his stead first over Greece, and made many wars, and won many strongholds, and slew the king of the earth, and went through the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. You see, so during the time Alexander the Great, he conquered many countries. You know, you see. So let me find out. Let me see when he reigned. He reigned from 336 to 323 BC. Let me see this. You know, this comes here. It says Pharaoh of Egypt, 332 to 323 BC. You see? So he was the first ruler over the Greek Empire, which he was in fact an Edomite. Let me see if it's too much information to need to be going into right now. But the point is, so-called white people took over during the time that the Greek Empire was established upon this earth, like under Alexander the Great, him being the first ruler over the Greek Empire, over the Greeks, which was like 800 years later. So Pharaoh Ramses II, which Pharaoh is just a title, just like king or Caesar, can never be a so-called white man. And I'm going to show you as well with the scriptures and the Zondervan dictionary that indeed it was dark-skinned people that ruled in Egypt. So this is Exodus chapter 20, verse 1. And the Most High spake all these words, saying, I am the Lord Yahawah thy power, which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. So, first and foremost, it's the Most High that brought us in slavery, but he also brought us out of slavery under the rulership of the Egyptians and under any other bondage that we have served upon this earth. But the point is, Egypt is being referred to as the house of bondage, the house of slavery. If we go to the word Egypt in the Hebrew, it says matar Zaryam, Mizraim, Matazarium, yes. So it says Matazarium, right? Let's go to Descendants of Noah. Genesis 10 and 1. Now these are the generations of the sons of Noah, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And unto them were sons born after the flood. You see, so after the flood, only Noah and his sons and their wives were being saved together with the animals that were gathered on the ark. And of them was the whole earth repopulated, as we can read about in Genesis chapter 9, verse 19. These are the three sons of Noah, and of them was the whole earth overspread. Going to Genesis chapter 10 and verse 6. This is talking about the son Ham. It says, and the sons of Ham were Cush, Mizraim, and Put, and Canaan. So one of the sons of Noah, Ham, he begat a son named Mizraim, or Matazarium. You see? Which is the same. Which is the same. See? It says Mitzrayim, Jewel, Mitzrayim, for example, upper and lower Egypt, Egyptians, Mitzrayim. Let's see what it also says. So the people of Egypt are referred to in the scriptures Matazarium, which are descendants of Ham. And this picture that I'm showing you right now, it says Ham, perhaps Hot, the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 69 years before the flood, and one of 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes. Why? Because so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, and those carried among the heathen nations, looking like the heathen nations, they come from the lineage of Shem. So when it says he became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, it means there's a difference between so-called Negroes, so-called Negro-looking Israelites, and people that come from Ham. It says, but the Egyptians, Mitzrayim, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. So Ham was the progenitor of the dark races. That means that Egyptians are dark races, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites as well. So what does this picture have to do with Ramses II? If we understand that 800 years later, the so-called white people uh, conquered Egypt, what did they have to do with well, like 900,000 years Salakia? So what did these people have to do with putting themselves out there like this? Why? Because they're the anointed cherub that Covereth, and the Most has set them to be so. Why? Because they're the ones that know the truth. In order to tell a lie, you need to know the truth. So um, yeah, we go to Ezekiel chapter 28. It says the workmanship goes into other because it's occupation, work, business, occupation, property, service use. So the way that Serpent was already set up, you know, will be of later use as well, in his reincarnations, coming back with the same spirit in Cain and Esau. You see, because the serpent already knew, he knew the truth, but he also knew about, you know, he also was able to tell a lie because he knew the truth. You see, coming back as Esau, he's that anointed cherub that Covereth. You see, that sets him up, sets himself up, puts something over something else, putting his own face out there over the face of the actual Egyptians, being the Sudanese people, being dark-skinned people. Let me let me show you. Let me show them the people. You see, so Sudanese people are very dark-skinned. You see. um, so yeah, so Esau's being set up, for this. First, Ezekiel 28 verse 15. That was perfect in the ways from the day that was created till iniquity was found in you. This is talking about Cain. Because Cain, he transgressed when he started to offer up that offering that was not accepted. This is Genesis chapter 4, starting at verse 3. Let me start at verse 2. And she again bare his brother Abel, and Abel was a keeper of sheep, but Cain was a tiller of the ground. So they had both different occupations. One was busy with cattle, and the other was working the land. Verse 3. In the process of time it came to pass that Cain brought of the fruit of the ground an offering unto the Lord Yahawah. And Abel also brought of the firstling of his flock, and of the fat thereof, and the Lord Yahawah had respect unto Abel and to his offering. But unto Cain and his offering he had no respect, and Cain was very wroth, and his countenance fell. And the Lord Yahawah said unto Cain, Why art thou wroth, and why is thy countenance fallen? If thou doest well, shalt thou not be accepted? And if thou doest not well, sin lieth at the door. And unto thee shall be his desire, and thou shalt rule over him. You see, so once Abel offered up the sacrifice that was righteous, Cain started to envy his brother. Meanwhile, Cain was the older one, and Abel looked up to him, for guidance. You see, but what um, what Cain did, was incorrect. He was not supposed to offer up um, that sacrifice concerning the fruit of the fruit of the ground, which was his mistake. You see. So yeah, this is Ezekiel chapter 28 and verse 13. Thou hast been in Eden, the garden of the Most High. Every precious stone was the covering: the sardius, topaz, the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of the tabrets and the pipe was prepared in thee in the day that thou was created. So this is talking about how Cain, Esau, and the serpent, know the truth, but they also know how to set up the lie because they know the truth. You see, verse 14, thou art the anointed Cherub Covereth, and I have set thee so, thou wast upon the holy mountain of the Most High. Thou wast walk up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. You see, this is talking about Esau, how he, covers himself, through the spirit and power of Bahasham to set himself up as being all these different people, by deceiving the nations, because that's what he is allowed to do. And it says, Revelation chapter 20, verse 7, and when the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them together to battle, the number of whom is the sand of the sea. So after those 1,000 years that Esau was pushed to the mountains, he would come back into rulership. When he would come, he would deceive the nations, was given into his power. You see, verse Ezekiel chapter 28, verse 15. Thou wast perfect in thy ways from the day that thou wast created, till iniquity was found in thee. You see, this is what happened, with Cain, because they had received the laws, statutes, and commandments of Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, but he transgressed. He knew what he had to offer up, but he didn't do it. So Rawchaa, through the Spirit, it was edifying, showing you that both the serpent, Esau, and Cain bore those same spirits, coming back, because there's nothing, I say there's nothing new under the sun, man. History repeats itself. So what has happened in the past happened again, and it's going to happen again as well. You see, so Rawchaa, this lesson was edifying. I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Qadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone, who teach and rule well, and shalom to the sincere Akim, strange truth and sincerity.